The wind cut through the empty parking lot like a knife, stirring up the thin layer of snow into ghostly spirals. AJ's flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied, but the pool of light did little to calm the uneasy silence. A distant bell rang, not from any church, no, it was faint, off-key, as if someone dragged a brass bell across broken glass. He paused, crouching near the cold metal railing of the lot, trying to convince himself it was nothing. A prank, the wind, his imagination, but the hair on the back of his neck refused to lie down. Somewhere in the shadows, a sound scratched against the frozen asphalt. Not footsteps. Something slower. Something deliberate. AJ's walkie crackled to life. "You shouldn't be here. Not tonight," a voice hissed, breaking through the static. He froze. The voice was familiar but wrong. Wrongly intimate, like it knew him. He glanced toward the lot's far edge, where the snow met the darkened tree lane. A figure, blurred and still, watched him. And then, just as he blinked, it vanished. AJ swallowed hard. His own voice caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. "Hello." The silence that answered was too heavy, too complete. Not even the wind dared disturb it. Something moved behind him. He didn't hear it approach, but he felt it. Cold, patient, waiting. He spun around. Nothing. But deep in his chest, a growing certainty whispered. He was not alone. And whatever was here, it had been waiting for him. AJ pulled his jacket tighter around him, the thin nylon doing little against the sharp December air. The snow crunched under his boots as he moved toward the edge of the parking lot, flashlight bobbing, trying to pierce the darkness beyond the tree lane. The faint glow of distant street lamps offered no comfort. Shadows pooled and twisted like liquid, shifting with every gust of wind. He had taken this night watch job thinking it would be simple. An overnight security shift at the old shopping complex, one of the few places still open late on Christmas Eve. But tonight, the quiet was different. It wasn't just the cold. It was heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. A signboard rattled in the wind. Or was it something brushing past it? AJ's hand tightened around the flashlight. He remembered the voice, the low, deliberate warning over the walkie. "You shouldn't be here. Not tonight." He shook his head. It had to be a prank. Some kid messing with the new security system. That had to be it. But when he swung the flashlight back toward the tree lane, he caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow that didn't align with the snow, a form that lingered just beyond the reach of light. And then it was gone. AJ tried the walkie again, voice trembling slightly. "Hello? Anyone there?" Silence. Nothing but the wind brushing across frozen asphalt. He took a cautious step forward. The lot felt larger than it should, the familiar stores around it stretching into darkness, their windows black and unwelcoming. The Christmas lights hung slack, unlit, like forgotten teeth in a decaying smile. Something about the way the lights refused to shine made him shiver. A noise, soft, deliberate, echoed from behind one of the closed shops. A door creaked open. He froze. He hadn't touched it. Footsteps followed. He spun around, shining his flashlight wildly, but the space behind him was empty. Only his own breath puffed out in the cold air. AJ's mind raced. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the quiet pressing on him after hours of nothing. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was following, just beyond the edges of his perception. Something patient, watching, waiting. He remembered what his grandfather used to say about Christmas Eve back home. The night watches, he had called them. When the shadows talk, and people forget what they see in the dark. He had laughed at the old superstition then. But now, the laugh stuck in his throat. A sudden whisper came from the far end of the lot, barely audible. "You can't leave." AJ froze mid-step. His flashlight swung toward the source. Nothing. The wind picked up, rattling the metal shutters of the closed stores. And then he saw it. Footprints in the snow. Not his. Not anyone's he recognized. They led from the tree lane straight toward him, stopping a few feet short. His chest tightened. The rational part of his mind screamed, "There's no one here, you're imagining it." But every instinct told him the same truth. Something was here. Something that didn't belong. Something that had been waiting for him. He fumbled with the walkie again, desperate for contact. Base. Base I need. Static. Just static. Ajay swallowed, trying to steady his shaking hands. He knew he had to move, had to leave the lot, but the entrance felt impossibly far, distorted by shadows that reached like fingers across the asphalt. Every step he took seemed to echo too loudly, betraying his presence. The tree lane at the edge of the lot stirred again. A figure stepped forward. Not fully human, not fully shadow. And it spoke, soft, deliberate, chilling. You can't go back. AJ's heart pounded, a hammering rhythm that matched the unseen pulse of the night around him. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the snowbank, flashlight clattering onto the ice. The beam rolled across the lot, catching a fleeting glimpse of something. Eyes? Glinting metal. And then nothing again. He scrambled to his feet, voice tight, almost a whisper. Who's there? No reply. Only the wind. Only the quiet. And the undeniable certainty that whatever had spoken, whatever had been waiting, was far closer than he had dared imagine. The night stretched on, heavy and suffocating, with shadows shifting, twisting in ways they shouldn't. Ajay realized, with a cold sinking feeling, that the lot was no longer the familiar place he had entered hours ago. Time felt wrong. Space felt wrong. And somewhere, deep in the snow-laden darkness, something was moving. Always moving. He took a tentative step forward, and then froze. The distant bell rang again. Off-key, brittle, dragging across the air. The shadows at the tree lane seemed to pulse in response. And in that moment, Ajay knew, whatever was watching him had begun. It had begun, and there would be no turning back. AJ's hands trembled as he gripped the flashlight, its narrow beam slicing through the unnatural darkness. The footprints in the snow hadn't moved, but neither had the shadows. He couldn't tell if the figure had vanished entirely or was merely holding its breath, waiting. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, but something deeper, something that wasn't quite fear yet, kept him rooted in place. The lot wasn't supposed to feel like this. Every Christmas Eve he had spent at this job had been quiet. Dull even. Empty streets, flickering lights, the occasional drunk driver swerving past. Nothing like this. The silence now was too thick, too heavy, pressing down on his chest, forcing his lungs to ache with each shallow breath. As he took a tentative step forward, a memory struck him. His grandfather's stories. He had grown up hearing whispers about the night watches. How, in certain places, the dead or the restless lingered long after the living had gone to sleep. Back then, he had laughed at the superstition, chalking it up to holiday tales meant to scare children. Now the memory felt like a warning he hadn't listened to. Something brushed against the back of his neck, almost imperceptible. A whisper of cold, like a shadow running its fingers across his skin. He spun, flashlight swinging wildly, illuminating the empty lot. Nothing. He forced himself to speak. Who's there? No reply. Only the crunch of snow underfoot, though he could see no movement. Ajay moved toward the tree lane, each step tentative, like testing ice. A faint outline of a building caught his eye. An old abandoned store at the edge of the complex. Its windows were dark, painted with frost that distorted shapes behind the glass. Something inside shifted. He froze, breath misting, heart hammering. A low thud followed. Then another. It was a rhythm. Deliberate. Footsteps. He thought. No, too slow. Too heavy. He crouched, inching closer, and a voice floated from inside, barely audible. You shouldn't have come. AJ's stomach twisted. It sounded familiar, like the voice over the walkie earlier, but warped, distant, like it was both inside and outside his head. He swallowed, fumbling for his radio, but there was nothing. Static, broken signals, silence. The legend his grandfather had spoken of came rushing back. It wasn't just superstition. Stories of a cursed Christmas Eve, a family that had vanished one night decades ago, leaving behind only footprints that appeared in fresh snow and then disappeared. AJ's rational mind fought, but the details lined up too closely. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He remembered the neighbors' warnings from years ago, tales told at the market or in passing. They say he comes when the bells stop ringing, one had whispered. He watches. Always watches. Ajay had laughed then. Not tonight. Tonight. The laughter was a thin, brittle thing lodged in his throat. A sudden shift in the shadows drew his attention. The snow at the edge of the lot rippled, as if something beneath it was moving. He aimed his flashlight. Nothing. And yet, the movement persisted, subtle, impossible. Leave. Another voice hissed. Different from the first. This one closer, sharper, urgent. He spun. Empty. But then he noticed something in the snow. Small, hand-sized depressions, spaced unevenly. They weren't footprints, at least not human. He knelt, tracing them with a gloved finger. They led from the abandoned store to the edge of the lot, then vanished, abruptly. AJ's pulse quickened. He couldn't understand it. Logically, it made no sense, but his rational mind was crumbling under the weight of what he was experiencing. He felt eyes on him. Every shadow seemed to pulse with awareness. Every gust of wind carried a whisper, indistinct yet menacing. He remembered his own apartment, the warmth of his small tree at home, the sound of carols faintly drifting through the streets. He longed for it, and yet a cold certainty told him he wouldn't leave this lot that night. Not without something. The abandoned store beckoned. Ajay approached cautiously, flashlight tight in his grip. He peered through the frost-covered glass. At first, nothing. Then, in the corner of the room, a figure hunched low, indistinct. It had no face, or perhaps it had too many. He couldn't tell. Its body shimmered like a shadow that hadn't quite learned to hold form. He swallowed, forcing words past his dry lips. What are you? The figure didn't move. The voice came from behind him now, icy and thin. You're part of it now. AJ's knees nearly buckled. He spun again. Empty lot. Shadows stretching unnaturally long. The wind stilled, leaving an oppressive silence. He stumbled backward, thoughts racing. There had been tales. Of a family curse tied to Christmas Eve. Of shadows that could leave traces in the snow. Of people who vanished while others only found their voices whispering back at them in the night. And now, it felt real. He felt drawn into it, trapped within a ritual older than the town itself. A flicker of movement to his left. He swung the flashlight. Nothing. Then a whisper close to his ear. They watch when the bells stop. Ajay staggered, hearing it not once but repeated, overlapping, echoing from every direction. He pressed himself against the side of the abandoned store, trying to rationalize, to understand. He caught his reflection in a cracked window pane, eyes wide, face pale, but behind him. Something moved. Something mirrored him. Or was it him? The lot's edges seemed to stretch unnaturally now. The familiar layout twisted, shadows elongating impossibly, snowdrifts forming shapes like twisted limbs. Every instinct screamed danger, yet he could not move. It was as if some force held him, tethered to the unfolding horror. A sudden, sharp sound, a bell from somewhere deep in the complex, shattered the stillness. Then silence. The shadows pulsed in response. Ajay could no longer tell if the snow was covering solid ground or something else beneath. Something moving, waiting. Footsteps again. Not his own. Slow, deliberate, encircling him. And then a whisper, so close he felt the cold breath. You belong to this night now. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. But his voice caught in his throat. The rational mind that had survived mundane Christmas Eve shifts could not survive what he now faced. He was alone. He was being watched. And he was trapped in something that had been waiting, patient and inevitable, for decades. Ajay pressed himself into the corner of the abandoned store, chest heaving, flashlight shaking. The whispers, the shadows, the impossible snow tracks, they all pointed to one truth. Whatever haunted this place was not random. It had a purpose. And he had walked straight into it. The tree leaves stirred again. Not wind this time. Something stepped forward, deliberate, a presence that felt too solid, too intelligent to be dismissed. A cold certainty settled in AJ's chest. This was not an accident. Not a prank. Not fatigue. He was part of the story now. The night had chosen him, and it would not let go. The cold had stopped feeling like cold. It had become a living presence, wrapping around AJ's limbs, squeezing his chest. The lot had twisted completely, the familiar paths now impossible to navigate. Snowdrifts rose where none had been, forming walls and corridors that led nowhere. His flashlight flickered, the beam barely cutting through the darkness, revealing shadows that moved against every natural law. Something stepped from the tree lane. Not a figure exactly, but a shifting darkness, humanoid enough to make him flinch. Its edges blurred, as though reality itself rejected its form. And yet it was there, watching, waiting. "You can't leave," it whispered. The voice was everywhere, inside his head and outside, simultaneously soft and deafening. "Not now. Not ever." Ajay stumbled backward, tripping over a snowbank. The flashlight clattered to the ground, illuminating the impossible scene. Hundreds of footprints, not human, spiraling toward him from every direction. Each one left a faint, icy vapor, curling like smoke around his ankles. He scrambled to pick up the flashlight. The figure moved closer, or maybe it had been closer all along. He couldn't tell. The world around him had lost sense. Shadows stretched, twisted, merging with him. He screamed, but the sound bounced off invisible walls, swallowed by the darkness. A faint bell rang somewhere overhead. Brittle, metallic, wrong. The figure responded to it, pulsing with movement. Shapes formed behind it. Other shadows, contorted faces, limbs that bent in impossible ways. They whispered in overlapping tones. "You belong here. The night watches." AJ's mind screamed for logic, for explanation. But the rational part of him had already shattered. He could feel it, the cold inside his skull, the pressure in his chest, the darkness clawing at him from every direction. Every step forward was a step deeper into a nightmare designed just for him. He remembered the stories. The family, decades ago, vanished overnight, leaving only whispers behind. Perhaps they had tried to run. Perhaps they had screamed. Perhaps they had thought themselves clever, rational. He understood now. They hadn't stood a chance. The first voice came closer. Not whispered now, but screaming, fractured, fragmented. "Stay, or join us." AJ's knees buckled. He fell forward, snow spraying, landing hard. The flashlight rolled. Its beam landed on the figure, or figures he couldn't tell, standing over him. One shadow leaned closer, face indistinct but eyes blazing with cold intelligence. Ajay tried to crawl backward. His hands touched ice-cold snow that seemed to pull at him, rooting him in place. He tried to scream again. Only a strangled rasp emerged. "Your turn," the voice said. Closer. Closer. Everywhere. Something brushed against his shoulder. Cold, sharp, unyielding. He spun, flailing, but there was nothing. Nothing but snow, shadows, impossible shapes that moved independently, watching him with patient, terrible intelligence. He stumbled into the abandoned store. The door, which had been closed before, now stood open, creaking like it had been waiting for him. Inside, the shadows pulsed against the walls, climbing, stretching, as though the building itself were alive. Time fractured. Moments elongated, stretched into impossible infinity. Ajay felt seconds last minutes last hours. Voices whispered all around him, overlapping, frantic, accusing. "You belong. You belong. You belong." He clutched his head. Reality broke. He could see his own reflection in the cracked window, and behind him, another Ajay. Or maybe many. They mimicked him, twisted him, showed him what he could become. A scream tore from his throat. The shadow figure recoiled, pulsing with anticipation, absorbing his fear, feeding on it. The walls seemed to bend inwards, snow spilling through cracks like molten glass. Every exit he thought he saw disappeared. Every familiar object turned alien. Then a whisper, soft, deliberate, intimate. "Remember the bell. When it stops, you stay." AJ's mind froze. The distant bell from the lot had stopped ringing. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. He realized with a deep, cold certainty that he had already crossed the threshold. He had entered the night fully, and there would be no leaving. The figures converged, shadow after shadow, until the space was thick with them, a living, breathing darkness that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. They pressed closer, cold and patient. Ajay could feel their intent. Not random, not mindless, they had chosen him. He fought, clawed, flailed, but the night was inevitable. Every attempt to escape twisted the lot further, reshaping it around him, guiding him deeper into the nightmare. His mind screamed, but his body obeyed the invisible force. He was trapped, part of the story now. The night had him, and then it began to whisper his name. Ajay. Soft, urgent, terrifyingly familiar. He couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The shadows pressed, merging, stretching into every corner of his perception. His eyes darted, searching for an exit that did not exist. The air smelled of frost and decay, metallic and sharp, like the taste of blood on snow. A voice near his ear. You see them, don't you? They've been waiting. He realized then, he had seen them all his life. In reflections, in shadows, in the quiet spaces of empty streets at night. They had always been there, patient, invisible, waiting for him to arrive. He screamed again, a sound that did not echo, did not travel. It died inside him as the shadows enveloped him completely. Time fractured further. Minutes stretched into eternities. He could feel himself unraveling, piece by piece, memory by memory. You can't leave, the chorus whispered, overlapping, harmonious and awful. You belong now. You belong now. You belong now. Ajay's vision blurred. Shapes, voices, cold whispers. They were all merging. There was no escape. The lot, the snow, the tree-line, they were gone. Only the shadows remained, stretching infinitely, folding reality in on itself. His last coherent thought, before even thought itself began to dissolve, was a single unbearable clarity. I should have left when the bell rang. The darkness closed in, patient, inevitable. He was part of it now. And the night would never let him go. The snow was silent now. No wind, no footsteps, no bell. Only stillness, heavy and suffocating, pressing into the spaces where the lot had been. To anyone who might pass by in the early morning, it looked empty. Just another abandoned parking lot on a cold Christmas morning. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Ajay, or what had been him if anything remained recognizable, was gone. The shadows had receded, not vanished, but settled back into the cracks of reality, patient, waiting for the next. The lot felt different, like it remembered. Like it remembered him. A security car arrived hours later, the morning shift making their rounds. The officer parked near the abandoned store, flashlights sweeping across the frozen lot. Footprints led to the tree lane and ended abruptly, as if someone had stepped into another world. He frowned. No one was around. Just the snow. The emptiness. Inside the abandoned store, the windows were frosted over, but something faint gleamed in the glass, a reflection that shouldn't have been there. The shape of a man, leaning forward slightly, eyes wide. The officer blinked. Nothing. Christmas lights on the nearby shops flickered weakly. A single bell jingled somewhere high in the distance. It rang once, faint, brittle, off-key. Then silence again. Elsewhere, Ajay's apartment stood untouched. His small Christmas tree twinkled softly, ornaments sparkling. A neighbor walking by paused, noticing the faint glow through the window. But no one came to check on him that night. No one would. In the shadows of the lot, faint traces remained. Footprints too deep, pressed unnaturally into the snow. Shapes that weren't quite snowdrifts. The wind carried whispers, just at the edge of hearing. He belongs to the night. He belongs. A passerby, late for work, shivered despite the weak winter sun. The lot looked normal. Too normal. A chill ran down their spine, though they could not explain why. The hair on the back of their neck stood. And just for a moment, the shadows seemed to flicker, almost alive, waiting. The night watches had claimed another. At the abandoned store, the door creaked ever so slightly as if pushed by a hand, though no hand could be seen. Inside, the shadows pulsed gently. The space smelled of frost and decay, of something lost and gone, and yet not gone. Somewhere deep in the tree-lane, faint laughter echoed. Not the laughter of a child. Not the laughter of a living thing. Something older, patient, timeless. Something that remembered every Christmas Eve it had ever waited. AJ's voice, fragile, thin, breaking, was heard only by those who dared listen too closely. A whisper in the wind. I should have left, when the bell rang. The lot remained empty. Silent. Peaceful almost. But those who passed it felt it, a presence, patient, eternal. Waiting. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of perception, the shadows stirred again, ready to claim the next. Christmas came and went. Lights were strung, carols were sung, families gathered. And yet one lot remained different. The shadows waited. The snow held its secrets, and the echoes of a man who had entered the night never left. Because in that place on that Christmas Eve, the night watches were real. And AJ was part of them now.